Good morning from Warsaw. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, partners, dear friends of democracy, warm welcome to our webinar, Checks and Balances in Action, Strengthening Accountability through Parliamentary Oversight in OSCE region. My name is Yulia Netesova. I'm Chief of Democratic Governance Agenda Unit with OSCE ODIHR, and I will be your moderator today. My first word of thanks go to our partner. It's a joint webinar to Parliamentary Assembly of OSCE, who partnered with us and helped us to release this very timely publication that will be presented later today. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our leaders for opening remarks. And first on my list, we have President of OSCPA, we have Senator Pere Juan Ponsampietro, and I think you are wonderfully placed to kick off this discussion. You are a member of parliament, you were also, you worked in the party, and you're also part of the regional government. So you have seen every side of it, and now you have this wonderful international position. So words of wisdom from you, please take the floor.
So first of all, thank you very much for your invitation. And thank you very much also for letting me start this session. The first thing that I would like to say is that there is an ongoing plenary session now in our Senate, in which there is a session of oversight to the Ministry of Equality Rights. And she's delivering her speech regarding the implementation of the system to prevent violence against women in Spain. So today we are in an exercise of transparency as a government and, of course, in an exercise of oversight. Then this is my first point. I am in one of the rooms of the Senate, and I will try to be very brief, but just to introduce myself, of course, I'm in politics since a while. I was in the government of the Balearic Islands, 9 billion euros of budget, so I understand what it means to be on the scrutiny of the government, of the parliamentary system. And of course, since 2016, I was part of the Congreso, the Parliament of Spain, and then since 2023, I'm a member of the Senate. So I've been in the side of the executive, and also now I'm on the side of the legislative and the control side, I would say. And of course, now I am also having the honor to represent the 323 parliamentarians from, as you know, perfectly from Vladivostok to Vancouver. And I'm really honored to be the president for this mandate of 2 years. And actually, I will be very brief, and then we can have an open discussion. And I will try to mix both my experience here at national level, but also at international level. So my first point would be that there is no secret that if you compare the beginning of the 21st century, the first 25 years, and now the start of the second 25 years for the second part of the second century, there is a huge difference. And I think we have started the century with this idea of the liberal democracies will be forever, and today we are in a sort of challenging moment. I'm still very positive, but I think the difference is huge. So in this, let's say, in this major framework, I would like to just summarize and describe three things. First of all, as a president of the OSCPA, last year we observed, not us, but the planet as such, observed or had the opportunity. 50% of the population of this planet had the opportunity to vote. So my first message is of optimism, that democracy is still the main tool. And of course, there are a lot of people that are attached to democracies. So for me, it's very important not to be skeptical or negative. This is my first point. But at the same time, I would summarize in three things the three main challenges that we have. First, that when we do a sort of control of the executive, oversight whatever you want to call it, we have to do it without double standards. We cannot be asymmetric. So for me, this is the main point. And as the Parliamentary Assembly is concerned, the Parliamentary Assembly, I think in the last election session, the last session in summer in Porto, we were able to talk about that what we denounce, for example, as the aggression of Russia to Ukraine is concerned, we also have to denounce it as well as the situation in Gaza is concerned. So if you want to be credible, you need to really have this message of no double standards. The second point that I would like to underscore is our role as electoral observations. There was an observation in Moldova last week, and I think we have to be able, and I'm very pleased that you are speaking. Well, you're gonna moderate from Warsaw. I will be in Warsaw on Sunday and on Monday for the Human Dimensions Conference. And I think as observers, we have to be able to understand the new challenges that we are facing in all the contexts in which we are working. So we have to be able to understand that the challenges of electoral processes are different from 25 years ago. So I think this means that in all our observations, we are having the feedback from parliamentarians saying that cyber attacks, cybersecurity, fake news, disinformation, etc., are the new challenges. And the third thing, as a conclusion, because I was told that I had to speak no more than 3 minutes, is that for me, what is really at stake today is that as media freedom is concerned, as democracy is concerned, we really have to focus on the situation of the new threats for democracy, like foreign interference, cyber attacks. This, for me, would be the most important new challenge that we have to face as parliamentarians. Of course, we have to, as I said, we have to do a current or normal control. We have to observe as observers more, but in our countries as well, we have to pay more attention to the situation of media. And I will give you 2 examples. For example, in Spain, we passed a decision by the Council of Ministers to create an action plan, a national plan on disinformation. So I think this would be an important recommendation. And as a president of the OSCE, I have insisted that we have to slightly change the paradigm of election observations as media and fake news are concerned. So I would like to stop here. I summarize these 3 things that for me are really important for the president.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to your amazing team for the support that was given to us and allowed us to collect unique data that we'll be presenting later today. And now I'll give the floor to our very own Tea Yaliashvili, First Deputy Director of OSCE ODIHR. Tea has on her shoulders an immense wealth of experience in all OSCE participating states. Tea worked with all branches of power and, of course, with parliament, with some of them more than others. But dear Tea, please share your words of wisdom with us opening this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. And then I think that all compliments goes to my team, for the tremendous work that you are doing. And I'm very pleased to see Mr. San Pietro, our OSCE Parliamentary Assembly President. And I would be very, very much delighted, also to host while in Warsaw. And also very much grateful to see the parliamentarians from Sweden, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also, of course, our dear friends from the civil society organizations. So, dear colleagues, it's indeed a great pleasure. And I think that when we are discussing about the parliamentary oversight, we all agree that it's really a cornerstone function of a democratic governance. And of course, it empowers parliaments to hold governments accountable, thereby ensuring transparency and fostering public trust. Although often less prominent than the legislative or representative function, oversight is crucial to maintaining the balance of power and preventing, of course, the executive overreach. And in the current political context that has been very eloquently, described by the president of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, indeed it's characterized by the polarization and increasing executive dominance. Effective oversight is more critical than ever, and strengthening this function becomes essential for safeguarding democracy, upholding our OSCE commitments, and of course reinforcing the rule of law across OSCE participating states. From the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, we seek to underscore the vital role of parliamentarians in promoting these democratic principles and of course institutional accountability. And the current and today's also initiative forms part of our ODIHR's broader mandate to support the development and resilience of democratic institutions. And our latest publication, Parliamentary Oversight of the Executives in the OSCE region, aims to illustrate how oversight mechanisms ranging from the committee inquiries to the individual powers of members of the parliament are regulated through national constitutions and parliamentary rules and procedures. And I truly hope that this publication, that providing a comparative overview of legal frameworks and good practices, would be instrumental, for a lot of people to study, to look into, and eventually utilize in their daily work. Finally, I think that, and I truly hope that our webinar will serve as a platform to call for renewed political and institutional commitments to robust parliamentary oversight. And this would include equipping, of course, the parliamentarians with the necessary tools to meaningfully monitor executive actions, and also importance how we can advance accountability in line with the democratic values. Thank you very much for your attention, and I truly hope that this webinar, as all others preceding it, will be very, very much useful and fruitful for the audience, that it serves the purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Didi Madlova, Diatea. Thank you so much for reminding us again about the importance of oversight, and I think you worked linked wonderfully with the words of President San Pietro, who has now the session of oversight. And we in ODIHR, we would love every parliament to have every day a small session of oversight before the plenary or in the committees, because we know that democratic oversight, it's like an insurance for democracy. Every day you pay little, but if you don't pay, if you don't have insurance, then you're going to pay really, really a lot. And dear colleagues, I was trying to look a bit back in time to see where the seeds of this were planted in our OSCE democracies, and apparently the whole process of scrutiny goes back to 13th century Magna Carta 1215, when the first seeds were planted to limit at that time the king's fiscal habits and financial expenditures. We, of course, will not talk about kings today, but we do have also a historical parliament, a historical committee present with us today. And of course, we need to remember that the OSCE space is also very, very diverse. We have different political systems, electoral systems. Some parliaments are very small, some are very, very big. But as our publication shows, small parliament can do very strong oversight as well. So this should never deter anyone. And of course, we all know that the strength of the parliament is not just the laws that the parliament passes, but also the questions that the parliament asks to the government. And the way we structure this webinar today, we will have two presentations from two national parliaments. So we will have Swedish Parliament, Riksdag, that will be represented by Mr. Ulrik Nilsson, who is an MP and also a member of the Committee on the Constitution of Riksdag. We'll also have an MP from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Mrs. Marina Pendes, who is a delegate in the House of Peoples, who will talk about thematic oversight. This is also important. And then the third person in this panel will be Yorum Duri, an expert from Transparency International, our important civil society counterparts, the ones who control the controller very often. So I think this will build up the ground for the presentation that will be the last but not the least done by Dinara. And I would like to start our session and trying to be mindful of time as well. We're a bit over, but I'm sure we'll manage to catch up. The first speaker today will be from Sweden. I'm a big fan of the committee that you represent today, dear Mr. Nilsson. I know that this committee is more than 200 years old, and this is the committee that has a very strong role in oversight, very strong role in the parliament, but in Swedish democracy, I would say, especially in your setup where there is no constitutional court. You have so many tasks. You also have a wonderful system of parliamentary ombudsman. That's a separate track, but we are really excited to have you here. Thank you so much, and please tell us more about your good practices and the way you apply and practice oversight in the walls, in the rooms of Riksdag. Please, the screen is yours.
Thank you. And I hope everything works out, so you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I would like to express the gratitude to being able to speak here. It's an honor for us to try to describe our system. As you said, we have a long tradition since our Constitution of 1809. We have both the Ombudsman institution and the Standing Committee on Constitution. But starting that area, we have more or less 4 different lines of scrutiny in Sweden. Firstly, every member of parliament could raise written or verbal questions to the ministers and to expect to have a decent answer. That means that they can lift anything and open it for debate. Secondly, we have the Ombudsman institution where every Swede could raise complaints about the public service and then gotten verdict saying should be this way or shouldn't be this way, and again up for public debate. We have a public audit office that, based on risk assessments, scrutinize the public services and saying these are efficient, these are not efficient, these follow the rules, these didn't follow the rules, and which also raise the responsibility for the government to take care of their authorities. And then, last but not least, we have the Standing Committee on Constitution, and I will go a bit more in detail about our way of handling. Every member of parliament could raise a question saying, I've seen something that may not conform with the constitution or with the rules, and therefore I file a complaint to the Standing Committee on Constitution. We then start to investigate it. It should be said from the beginning, the Committee on Constitution do not deal with revenge. We deal with investigation and try to find out what happens. So the first step is always to start to collect any information on what is the real facts of the situation. If it was a broadcasted statement, then we ask to have transcription of the broadcast saying this is what actually happened. If there's a written document, we collect them. The second step is always to ask what were the basis, what were the circumstances when this happened, in order to collect the correct situation of the happening. Then, if we can't get enough answers from this written or verbal discussions, then we can call upon the ministers or the state secretaries to come to the Committee on Constitution for mostly a public hearing, where we can ask the questions we need to have answered in order to scrutinize the situation. I say mostly public hearing because some matters are actually under secrecy due to security or that sort of arrangements. So we try to go to the bottom or to the core of the situation. I saw on the internet a comic meme where 2 men stands looking at a figure And from one side, one man said it's a 6. And the other man said it's a 9. And then they agreed on that it's 7.5 plus minus 1.5. And that's a quite good expression of how we deal with matters in Committee on Constitution, because from one side you can say this is obvious, try to fool the public, or the other side say, well, this is the scientific knowledge. But then we try to go down to the core and say, well, there were one document supporting one side, but on the other hand, there were other documents supporting the other side. So the core may be the selection of documents, not the statement as such, because then we have the core of the situation wherefrom we actually can learn something. We can say we should try to avoid this in the future. You must be aware that when you said something, it may be misunderstood or misinterpreted. So it's important to say that we go to the bottom or to the core of the issues. Then, of course, it's still open for interpretations of the core, but that's another thing. Then when we go to the verdict or to the judgment, then we try to say, well, in the heat of the struggle, there can be mistakes made. It's human to make mistakes. So we can accept it, and we must respect that people are human. And therefore, we also try to find a unity in the valuing of the situation, because then we can all learn from it. Because we need to be trustworthy, because the next time it will be the other gang who are in government. And that means that I should be treated by them as I treated them this time. So we try to find a balance where we actually are in unity. So that means that when we have scrutinized the situation, we found something, we have the core, we have made a validation and say, well, the problem is actually there. We can either say you should be criticized for it, or we can say we have a good idea, don't do this again. Then we are presenting our results to the media. And as also with other lines I talked about, the question, the ombudsman, the National Audit Office, everything is published and it's discussed in the media. And the media and the electors are actually the final judges in this. We shouldn't judge, we shouldn't deal with revenge. We should try to find the truth. And then the public debate has to do the verdict, because the things that are political should be handled by politicians and by public debate, and not by juridical systems or lawyers. So it's important that we said that. So shall I give you some idea what I think are our success factors? First of all, it is just that we deal with politics and not with law enforcement. We need to separate between the political responsibility that has to be scrutinized by the elections finally, or the juridical process. Secondly, we need to have a very competent administration that helps us investigate this. Their ability to be both impartial but also persistent is actually a key factor to us, because then we on political level can discuss from a solid base. So to find a good administration is important. We have to focus on finding the core of the problem, not to take the easy way out and say, obviously, the other side, they are stupid, therefore they try to fool us, but to actually try to find what's actually had happened. And I'm glad to say today that I'm sitting beside here in this room, one of our opposition today, and it may be changed the next time. Secondly, then we need to respect each other. And also realize that the next time it could be the other way around, and then I will be playing the defense, or in this case, maybe I am the defender and Hans by my side, or the attacker. But it may change, and it can change quite easily. So the Christian rule, everything you want to do to your neighbor, you must be able to do to yourself, applies. Is there any threats to this system? Yes, there is one threat, and that's actually that someone decides that we do politics earlier than in the debate. We try to make or use it as a revenge or to raise it too high, and not searching the unity, not searching the learn process, but rather to point finger towards the other party. So this is actually
Cut you short because of the time limit. I know it's unfair. If you would like to wrap it up, please.
Yeah, well, I was actually just one more sentence saying, this is how we work. You must find your way, but it has worked out quite well for us, and we have gained gradually respect for that handling. Thank you from Stockholm.
Thank you so much, dear Mr. Nilsson. And I know it's really unfair. I think a whole week of conference could be done on Swedish oversight, because you have a wonderful mix of representative democracy, direct democracy. And I love it how you stress that this is not political reaction. This is constitutional scrutiny. I love how candid you are to mistakes, how you really want to comprehend rather than jump into political process and contribute to polarization. And amazing accountability that you always have press conferences and you publish reports. We are really excited to have you in Warsaw later in November. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, if you're interested into elaborate Swedish case, you can check our publication. Sorry, I'm going to do a small reclama here. And there are two case studies, actually. You can see a separate page 44, 45, and also a page 34 speaks about Swedish system. Thank you so much. And I would like to pass the floor to dear Marina Pendes. Marina, you had difficulties connecting. It must be very stressful. I'm really sorry. Would you like to try to say something so we can see if you are connected?
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, it's working. Dobro jutro.
Dobro jutro.
Very
Good
nice.
morning.
Dear Marina, if you allow me to please introduce you, to remind everyone that you are the delegate in the House of Peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and you will be talking about thematic oversight, sharing your experience on parliamentary scrutiny of security sector, which I think is a very interesting example of how oversight can be applied thematically. And I wanted also to say that Bosnia and Herzegovina is one of the two countries in OSCE space that has a separate law on oversight. So, dear Marina, welcome. And the screen is yours. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to warmly greet all of you and express my gratitude to organizer for the opportunity to exchange view and ideas, and as well as share lessons learned of these very important issues of parliamentary oversight and good practices. Why is parliamentary oversight important? Although Parliament is one of the pillars of democratic government with its primary legislative function, meaning the adoption of laws essential for the functioning of every society, another very important role of Parliament is the oversight and control of the executive branch, that is, the institutions of executive power. Oversight and control are crucial because they ensure their full implementation of adopted laws, guarantee transparency in the work and the use of public resources, both financial and material. Through oversight and control, public accountability of government's body is also ensured, as well as the building of trust between voters, elected representatives and appointed officials. The Parliamentary Assembly of Bosnia and Herzegovina consists of two chambers, the House of Representatives and House of Peoples. Each of these chambers, and therefore the Parliament as whole, has the obligation to exercise oversight over state institutions through various mechanisms. The competencies of the Parliamentary Assembly of Bosnia and Herzegovina are prescribed by the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina, while until 2018 specific oversight activities were regulated only by the rules of procedure of each chamber. In 2018, the Parliamentary Assembly of Bosnia and Herzegovina adopted the law on parliamentary oversight with the aim of improving the efficiency, transparency, and functionality of the institutions subject to oversight. By adopting this law, we obtained a unified and clear framework. The law regulates the jurisdiction of the bodies that conduct parliamentary oversight, the producers, the carrying of oversight cooperation in the area of oversight, the methods of reporting to Parliament, as well as sanctions that may be applied in oversight proceedings. Who carries out the oversight? Parliamentary oversight is exercised by the Parliamentary Assembly of Bosnia and Herzegovina, namely both chambers of the Parliamentary Assembly and its working bodies, committees. These committees may be permanent, joint, and temporary ad hoc committees. In addition, Member of Parliament, by posing questions, requesting reports, or submitting interpellations, can exercise oversight over government institutions. Therefore, oversight is designed in such a way that it does not depend only on the institutional level, but also on the initiative of individuals. How is oversight carried out? The law prescribes a wide range of mechanisms, from public hearings, debates, thematic sessions, through parliamentary injures to the consideration of reports from institutions, the audit office, investigating bodies, and others. There are also parliamentary questions, both oral and written. Interpellation, request for reports to the presidency or to Council of Ministers of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and even the possibility of initiating a vote of no confidence. Tools is a broad spectrum of tools through which Parliament can fulfill its oversight role. Oversight is not limited to the mere submissions of a report by an institution. It also includes verification of its accuracy, debate, public sessions, and even investigation where there are suspicions of illegality. What powers of the oversight bodies have? The law has granted very significant powers. Committees can summon representatives of institutions, ask them questions, they can request the assistance of auditors, engage independent experts, request documentation, and conduct visits to institutions. They can also seek the opinion of the Ombudsman institution or other bodies, and information can be collected through public hearings and media sources. One of the bodies conducting oversight is the Joint Committee of both chambers of the Parliamentary Assembly for Defense and Security. As a former Minister of Defense, but also as a long-time member of the Joint Committee for Defense and Security, I would like to emphasize the importance of this committee. Its establishment ensures public, democratic, and civilian control over the defense and security sector. The committee plays a key role in monitoring, reviewing, and implementing Bosnia and Herzegovina's defense and security policy with the aim of improving the efficiency, transparency, and functionality of the system. Institutions under the oversight of the committee include the Ministry of Defense, the Armed Forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Ministry of Security and its policy agency, the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Economical Relation in the part related to armed trade and production of military equipment, as well as the Mine Action Center. Some of good practices of the committee's work include organizing review conferences, thematic sessions, a field visit to location of armed forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina and police agencies, a regular monitoring of the implementation of gender equality policy based on the UN Resolution 1325. The committee places special emphasis on respecting the human rights of members of the armed forces of Bosnia and Herzegovina. In this regards, I must point out that our parliament is the only one in the region that has adopted the law on the parliamentary military commissioner. This is an institution appointed by the Parliamentary Assembly of Bosnia and Herzegovina, whose task is the protection of the human rights of persons in uniform. Finally, I would like to emphasize that all these activities are carried out with the significant support of the OSCE mission in Bosnia and Herzegovina, with which the Joint Committee has been successfully cooperation for more than 20 years. This partnership gives us additional strength to ensure that our work is of even higher quality and that parliamentary oversight in the defense and security sectors remains a model of good practices in the region. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Hvala puno, hvala najlepše. I think it was impressive to hear about the toolkit that Bosnian Parliament has, that its availability. I particularly liked you mentioning the field visits to locations, because you do need sometimes to go in person and check what is happening. I love you mentioning work with independent institutions. Our publication doesn't go into that area, but it is an important line of inquiry. And thank you for giving the example of this committee between two chambers. We do see our OSCE participating states innovating, creating mechanisms that are important for their environment. For example, we have in France a minister whose main task is to liaise with the parliament. That's the job. So thank you so much for sharing this unique setup that your parliament has. It was very interesting to listen to you. And we're also excited to have you in person in November in Warsaw.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will give the screen now to dear Yorum. And Yorum, I'm very sorry. I will need to ask you to please be quick. I know you prepared some slides. Thank you so much. Our dear partners from Transparency International, with whom we run an annual boot camp for TI chapters in different participating states. 2 years ago, we had one on parliamentary oversight, and Yoram was so kind to work with us on that occasion. And please present your insight and things that you learned in your research that does go beyond OSCE space, because TI works globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia, and hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be part of this very important discussion. So I'll start my presentation with a quick overview on the importance of parliamentary oversight. So parliamentary oversight is widely and correctly described as the lifeblood of democracy. It is what keeps government answerable to people, it reinforces the rule of law, and prevents the concentration of unchecked power. But beyond safeguarding democratic principles, oversight can also play an important role in the fight against corruption, which is a core function of Transparency International's work. When parliaments scrutinize budgets, investigate government actions, including corruption scandals, and follow up on audit or other anti-corruption reports, they not only hold governments to account for the common good, but also actively close the space for corruption to thrive. By demanding accountability, deterring misconduct, and ensuring transparency, oversight turns the promise of democratic accountability also into protection of public resources and the public at large. So it is from this angle that Transparency International sees parliamentary oversight as a crucial horizontal accountability tool that can also play an important role in the fight against corruption. That is why we have invested in this area by developing tools and guidelines for effective oversight and conducting multi-country research assessments to understand what works, what doesn't, and how parliaments can improve their oversight role. So my presentation today draws on Transparency International's global work on parliamentary oversight, and most of the examples that I'm going to give are outside the OSCE region, but I do believe that they'll still bring very useful perspectives to enrich our discussion. So my presentation will follow three key lessons on what makes parliamentary oversight effective, which is existence of strong legal mandates and powers, resources, as well as follow-up on oversight actions. To start with, on existence of mandates and powers, for parliaments to hold government to account, there's need for legal mandates and powers to be in place to make it possible. This includes various tools and mechanisms, powers to summon and access information, as well as to sanction misconduct or wrongdoing. But our experience also indicates that oversight, particularly in Westminster models of democracies, is strengthened when opportunities are afforded to the opposition or independent parliamentarians to wield oversight tools. Without these opportunities, ruling party MPs may block oversight initiatives such as summons, censures, and establishment of special committees by using their majority to vote down any initiatives as a way of protecting members of the executive with whom they share party affiliations. So these opportunities are important and could be addressed through special powers in constitutions or rules of procedures. A few examples of these special powers is from Kenya, where, for example, the majority of key committees such as the Public Accounts Committee, Public Investment Committee, Committee on Implementation, and the Special Funds Account Committees should be from opposition parties. Also, chairpersons and vice chairpersons of public accounts committees, public investment committees, and committee on implementation are also elected from opposition MPs. In addition, it is also possible to append a minority or a dissenting opinion to a committee report, and also to have this tabled on the floor of the House. In Canada, each year, 22 days are designated as opposition days in the House of Commons, giving opportunity for opposition MPs to bring forward motions on any matter related to government rather than government business. And lastly, in Jamaica, the standing orders of the House of Representatives provide for special powers for opposition spokesperson or nominated MPs to, as a matter of priority, respond to a statement by a minister or lead to sectoral debates. In our experience, when such special powers are in place, oversight becomes more effective, credible, and resistant to partisan obstruction. And secondly, on resources, the availability and effective use of resources is also crucial for oversight in practice. So internal resources here include adequate and capacitated staff that can support members of parliament, as well as members of parliament themselves being incapacitated to develop expertise on certain thematic areas. And for external resources, we're looking at evidence indicate that the use of experts, witnesses, and input from independent bodies support parliaments in their oversight functions. And in addition, and also more importantly, the citizen participation in oversight activities not only provides critical information for oversight, but it also enhances legitimacy and visibility of oversight. And a good example that we have here is from Serbia, where the parliamentary rules of procedures provide for public committee hearings. And in 2021, according to the Global Parliamentary Report by Interparliamentary Union, 19 committees of the National Assembly held 40 mobile sessions across the country, and local governments, civil society organizations, and also in some cases, even local stations in remote areas also help to publicize these hearings to encourage more citizen participation. And then moving on to the last point on following up on oversight activities. So parliamentary oversight to be effective in practice, the executive needs to respond to oversight actions, such as when oral questions when asked oral questions or summoned to parliament, or provided with recommendations by parliamentary bodies. So this follow-up efforts to track whether the executive branch has heeded to the calls of parliament not only strengthens government accountability, but also increases the likelihood of actually government taking appropriate actions. So without these institutional mechanisms to monitor and follow up on government responses, it is left to individual members of parliament to follow up, and there is a real risk of important oversight actions or concerns being neglected. And in this case, we have a good example from Kenya, where an implementation committee was established in terms of the standing orders, and the committee scrutinizes the resolutions from the House, petitions, as well as commitment undertaken by the executive. So it monitors implementation in line with the expected timelines and can recommend sanctions in line with, in terms of Standing Order 209. And in 2021, 2023, during our assessment, we found that more than 75% of parliamentary oversight actions were being monitored. And our experience indicated that the government is more responsive to oversight actions, knowing that there's a committee which monitors and follows up on oversight actions. And lastly, just to a more thematic focus, our assessment and experience have shown that gender issues are mainly dealt with by women's parliamentary caucus, such as in Zimbabwe, or committees on women's equality, such as in Colombia. However, in this context, gender-sensitive approaches are isolated initiatives in most cases, and parliamentarians tend to struggle with how to integrate gender mainstreaming in all oversight activities. And it is an area that needs capacity building, peer exchanges, as well as monitoring and evaluation to move from isolated initiatives to systematic inclusion.
Thank you
Just
so much.
to summarize.
Yes, please, Yoram, we need to give time to Dinara to present our publication. I'm really sorry.
Right.
And thank you so much for sharing the gender-sensitive oversight insights. It corresponds very much to what we found in our research as well. And thank you so much for reminding us that this is not just a competition between different branches of power, but there is also competition between ruling party or ruling coalition and opposition. This is what we call mainstreaming opposition and oversight. Opposition role needs to be mainstream. Thank you so much, and congratulations on all of your research publications, and please send our love to the colleagues in Berlin. And now, colleagues, drum roll, last but not least, the very reason of today's webinar, our own publication on parliamentary oversight, which will be presented by Dinara Dildabekova, but I also wanted to thank other colleagues and all the experts who worked on this publication. It did take a village, it did take a lot of interaction through OSCE with all the parliaments, so thank you to everyone. The publication itself is not thick, it's quite thin, very simple. It contains amazing data that Dinara will present now. Dear Dinara, the screen is yours. Please take it away.
Thank you so much. Good morning, dear panelists, and good afternoon and good morning to everyone who joined online. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Yes, my name is Dinara Dildabekova, and today I'm pleased to present the publication that titled Parliamentary Oversight of the Executive in the OSCE region. We believe that this study comes at the particularly important time. Across many countries in the OSCE region, we are seeing increased concentration of power in the executive branch, while public trust in democratic institutions continue to decline. And therefore, that makes this topic not just relevant, but very urgent. Do you see my next slide?
No, Dinara, no, we're still at the opening slide. Yes.
Okay.
It's there. Mm-hmm.
So it was said many times today that parliamentary oversight is a cornerstone of democratic governance. And in fact, all OSCE participating states have committed through the Copenhagen document that the will of the people shall be basis of the government authority, and the parliament should ensure that this principle is upheld. But in many cases today, as you know, executive dominance is on the rise, and parliaments risk being sidelined either through the legal limitations or political pressure. And we would like to say that oversight isn't just a procedural task, it's essential for transparency and accountability, and it's one of the key messages of our study. So the objectives and the study aims, first and foremost, is to map the diversity of oversight system across OSCE region, examine how oversight is actually conducted and practiced, and highlight both contextual challenges and example of effective practices. It's a comparative study. It's mapping exercise of 56 parliaments in participating states, providing insights for parliaments. We followed a very comprehensive and detailed methodology, and it combined of the legal analysis of constitutions and rules of procedure, a review of reports from international organizations. We had a case study of the Swedish Riksdag, known for its strong oversight role. We also conducted semi-structured interviews with selected parliaments, and we learned a lot from those insights. And last but not least, we are proud to say that we had a validation by national parliaments directly through the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, And we are very grateful for CPA for facilitating this exercise, because through this verification of data, we ensure the accuracy of data and information that you will see in the study. Next. So the study follows a very straightforward structure and classification of oversight types. And we have the plenary-based oversight, the chapter, the full chamber's role in debates, motions, and all confidence votes. Then another chapter talks about the committees. It's often where the more detailed scrutiny happens. Independent bodies like auditors or ombudsperson that support oversight externally, and individual MPs who have their own tools to question or challenge the executive. One of the sections in our study is dedicated to the role of the opposition. And as we all know, the strong opposition is vital to effective oversight. Some countries empower opposition parties by guaranteeing minimum rights, for example, initiating debates, creating inquiry committees, or chairing oversight bodies. Others require high thresholds, for example, that effectively limit the opposition influence. And our study highlights best practices where minority voices are institutionally protected, helping to create a healthier oversight environment. And on the slide, you can see one of the tables, the annexes that provides a detailed information and lists all the OSCE participating states. So you can find it in one of the annexes that you can find the information that was verified and actually gives and demonstrates the diversity, how those oversight mechanisms are being enforced and implemented. So one of the biggest chapters of our study is dedicated to the oversight in parliamentary committees. And we think that committees are like an engine room of the parliamentary oversight. Standing committees follow specific policy areas, and inquiry committees investigate specific incidents or policy failures. Some have investigative powers, including the ability to compel evidence and summon officials. In several countries, committee chairs are reserved for the opposition members of parliament. However, we would like to also highlight that committee effectiveness often depends on the resources, political will, and access to information, not just the formal mandates. While we were preparing this study, we collected the data, we talked with practitioners, with legislators. We realized and we collected the challenges that actually impede the effective oversight. And despite the variety of tools, we can still see that oversight faces serious challenges. For example, governments may simply ignore oversight activities. Opposition rights are often weak or obstructed. The political environment may discourage accountability. Committee lack resources or legal authority. And in many systems, there is just a weak culture of oversight, where it's seen as adversarial rather than constructive. And we believe that addressing these challenges requires both institutional reforms and a cultural change. To conclude, we would like to say that there is a tremendous variation of how oversight is structured and practiced across the OSCE region. It's very diverse, but these differences reflect not just the legal frameworks, but also political systems, party dynamics, and historical legacies. To improve oversight, well, we need to strengthen legal mandates, we need to guarantee access to information, empower opposition groups, and promote a political culture where accountability is valued and not resisted. And we would like to invite you actually to explore our publication. Yulia had a printed copy, but if you're in Warsaw, you will receive a special bonus, a printed copy. But in the meantime, you can check it online. There is a QR code. You can explore the full study. It includes detailed legal frameworks and examples of good practice. And to a follow-up bonus conclusion, I would also like to say that once we produce this publication and we try to promote it, we discuss with our colleagues how we can actually get others get excited about oversight the way we are excited about this important topic. And we understand that the topic, while being straightforward, can be complex. So together with our communications team, we came up with a short explainer. It's about 12 snippets. And We will post, it was already posted earlier today, and I will put it in the chat. Please check this out. It's a short version, engaging version of the presentation, but it's a storytelling. And we use a seatbelt metaphor. When you're driving, you can drive without seatbelt, right? Maybe you can be faster, but will it be safer? Not necessarily. And it can easily lead to a disaster. And our statement that strong oversight doesn't slow down the democracy, it keeps it safe. And we end on the note that a parliament that embraces oversight may feel constrained, one may think, but it's also far more likely to reach its destination intact. And our destination is democracy.
Thank you so much, Dinar, also for ending on this very high note and very inspiring note, reminding that good oversight is not obstruction, it is construction of trust, of accountability, and of democracy. Dear colleagues, I would like to wrap up our webinar. I would like to thank our leaders who opened today this webinar, to the panelists from the Swedish Parliament, from the Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina, civil society, Transparency International, dear Jorum. Thank you so much. Big thank you to my own team, to Dinara, Valeria, and Maciek, who are handling the webinar today, but also to everyone who worked on the study, to OSCE. I would like to remind that for us, this publication is just probably even a small initial step. We mapped the existing practices. This is our mandate to act as knowledge hub, to collect best practices, but with only one view, to offer those best practices to all other parliaments. We facilitate peer exchange, we conduct capacity building activities, we give expert advice as well to national parliaments. So to all participants, please feel free to reach out to us. We are very generous with the knowledge we have. We collect it so that we can share it with you and strengthen your democratical infrastructure. And this process is really critical nowadays, as has been mentioned already several times. So we also welcome your feedback and ideas. We plan to go further and do additional publications, maybe specifically on the role of parliamentary minority, look into political polarization, and maybe checks and balances in general. But this will be in the future. Right now, I would like to encourage everyone to stay connected, stay engaged, and continue working together on advancing democratic accountability across OSCE region. Thank you so much. Wishing you all a lovely day, and goodbye. Thank you.